You're listening to Breakaway Wealth, the show designed to help you build wealth faster, think bigger, and break out of the herd. Now, here's your host, Jim Oliver.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, Ryan Zofray. Well, welcome, Ryan. See, I knew I was going to stutter that. Ryan, I did the name perfect, and then I just,
Yeah, you thought about it. It's all good, man. Thank you for having me, and welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, Ryan, I loved reading about you on your website because I always say adversity introduces a man to himself. And, I tried to join the Navy one time, and me and a buddy, because I had this vision of being a Navy SEAL. And as we got through the process, the guy pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, you're not eligible to join the Navy because of my juvenile record." And my buddy was about through the door and he goes, no, I'm not going if he's not going. And neither one of us ended up joining the Navy. But I thought all of that stuff was expunged when she became an adult, that it's sealed. But apparently for the Navy, there is no such thing. So kind of set that up for you to tell me a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about your kind of start in life, and then we'll go some questions from there. How's that?
Yeah, sounds good, Jim. And I have a similar experience. So when I got out of school, my father wanted me to be a marine mechanic, and so we had a fractured relationship. So when I ended up getting my GED and high school diploma, I wanted to, I'd do anything to gain his acceptance and his love. And he always dreamed of being like a motorcycle mechanic, and so he thought like, "Hey, Ryan, go be a marine mechanic, and this way, you could have an amazing career. And we're in Florida, and there's boats everywhere." And so I was like, "All right, Dad, cool." So I ended up going to MMI in Orlando when I was 18 years old, and I ended up graduating, and I was working at a marina. And I realized that the guy that's been there for 25 years is only making $50,000 a year. And I was like, there's no way in heck I'm going to continue doing this. And so I ended up quitting, but we used to work on all the Palm Beach County Sheriff Marine Unit boats, and I met an undercover cop. And so I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be a cop." And so I went to police academy. I passed the written exam. I did the interview, and like you, I had a juvenile record, but they told me, and even on the application, they're like, if you have a juvenile record, it doesn't count. It's expunged. It's fine. And then I got a letter in the mail saying like, "Unfortunately, due to your juvenile record, we're not going to be able to accept you." And I was like, "What?" And so I made a big stink about it, and I had a ton of letters written for me, and they ended up saying like, "Okay, fine, we will allow you to be a police officer, but you have to work in the prison systems for 3 years. And once you do that successfully, then you could be a field cop." And I was like, "I'm not doing that." So that was my experience. I have a very similar experience with you.
So, it's always, what I always say, man, is our scars are our superpower. That's how we recognize each other from our scars, and it makes us unique. And, some people obviously don't appreciate scars as much as I might, but I always think of this. If you think about when Jesus was resurrected, right? And he goes to doubting Thomas, he has holes in his hands, right? Because that's his scar. Now, that's how you know it's Jesus. Well, I mean, he's God. He could have healed those. He healed so many other people. He could have healed his hands, but he didn't, because that's how we recognize ourselves. So tell me a little bit about you tell me about your childhood and some of the things you learned from your childhood.
Yeah, sure. And so what comes to me is this lady named Eileen Wilder. She always says nothing's missing, and that just resonates with me, because it's like nothing in God's world happens by mistake. And there was a time in my life when I thought I was a mistake. There was a time in my life when I thought like everything was done to me, and I had this victim mentality. And so my first real traumatic experience was age 5. My sister passed away. And not only did I lose a sister, but I also felt like I lost my parents, because they were unable to deal with that experience or that situation. And my father and mother divorced shortly after that. and my father was a workaholic. So I started to adopt these beliefs that I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't lovable, or they didn't care about me. And I felt like I literally used the word like thrown away. That's how I felt. I felt like I was just like a throwaway. And so that progressed my behaviors as a young boy. I immediately started to rebel because I wanted their attention. And so the more I would rebel, the more attention I would get. So I started to adopt this belief of like, okay, the more trouble I get into, the more attention that I'll get. And that's actually better than getting nothing. And so that behavior lasted up until age 16. And it just progressively got worse. You know, I was smoking cigarettes at age 6. By age 11, I was smoking marijuana with my mother. My mother was a full-blown drug addict at this point. And so I just wanted to be accepted by her. And this was a way for us to bond. And, you know, she used, so I figured, hey, let me start using. And this way I can, you know, get that connection, that love that I never got. And my father was very abusive. So, you know, I never wanted to be around him because no matter what I did, he thought reprimanding me through physical violence was what was necessary. You know, his father was in the Army. He was a staff sergeant, and that's how he was raised. And so my dad was just doing the best that he could. But at that time, I didn't know any better. And so that was a lot of my teenage years was using drugs and alcohol in and out of juvenile detention facilities. I ended up, I think I got like 21 felonies by the time my criminal career was over. And I was looking at 25 to life at age 16, which, you know, at that moment, at that time, I really had no idea how I even got there. And it was such a wake-up call for me. And that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because I was introduced to a 12-step program that has changed my life. And today I have 21 years of sobriety because of that.
Wow. That's an amazing story, man. And I appreciate you sharing because, you know, I'm writing a book right now, and the first couple of chapters is about my childhood and kind of some of the things that molded me to believe the things that I believe, and how I found out about money and what I learned about money to be wrong, and all of these things, why I have such a passion to help people with financial independence. And it's not easy telling your story because of the things that you've told yourself in the past that are lies about why you went through that, right? And so what was the thing so the 12-step program that got you off the wrong track and on the right track?
Correct. Right? And so, yeah, you spoke about Jesus and God. And so that 12-step program is designed to develop a relationship with the higher power. So that 12-step program talks about higher power, and you can choose your own conception of God, because there's a lot of agnostics and atheists in the world. Yeah. And, you know, that 12-step program wanted to ensure that it could help those that are suffering, and they didn't want the God belief to get in the way. So that was that. But I do believe in Jesus Christ. He is my savior. And so that was the best thing that could have happened to me, because up until that point, I had no real principles or no guidance or no real roadmap on how to live a happy, healthy life. And so that program has 12 steps, and those 12 steps are designed to, heal a lot of those childhood traumas, and then replace those old patterns with new patterns that are God-like decisions. So there's the third step is all about like living God's will, not doing my will, living God's will, surrendering to God's will. And, like the bracelet says, like, what would Jesus do? And so like, that's a practice of this 12-step program. And so making decisions from that spiritual place, that spiritual mindset.
So, one thing that, when I was about 24, that's when I found God, and I didn't know anything about God, religion, church, anything like that. But the thing that, and I always thought, Ryan, somebody with my background, somebody with your background, that maybe, we're never going to probably have the sweater vest on and the bow tie and the saddle shoes like I kind of envision Christians being. And I realized that, wait a minute, Jesus chose 12 people that nobody else would have chosen, right? The religious actually crucified Jesus, right? The rebellious are the ones that go out and communicate Jesus's message. And you look at Paul, and anybody that's ever read the Bible understands Paul's conversion and how powerful that is. But so I love, once I realized that Jesus and God, God picks people that most people wouldn't pick. And I say this thing, adversity introduces a person to themselves, because that adversity makes you realize what's important. And so, I always hate when somebody says hurt people hurt other people. No, I don't believe that, because I believe you have a choice. When you are hurt, sometimes you go the other direction. All you want to do is help people, right? And so, again, reading about you a little bit on your website, I can definitely see where you have this heart to help people. So tell me where that came from, and tell me kind of what you do now and how you help people.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, I've always had a soft spot, as a child growing up, and I was always such a loving and caring kid, but I adopted a lot of the violence and a lot of the toxic behaviors because it was survival for me. And that was how I was able to navigate through that. And so, but being in recovery, it really opened me up to my sensitive side. And I was really able to start being vulnerable and expressing the emotions, because, growing up, my father would always teach me, like, don't show your emotions. Big boys don't cry, tough it up, and, always win, like nothing was ever good enough for him, so no matter what I did, it was like he could always do better. He was always challenging me and comparing himself to me. So like, I just never felt like I was good enough. And once I started to realize, to your point, our scars are our superpowers, I believe that, we're the chosen ones, right? It's like, to the depth of our pain is to the highs of our heights, or the highs of our success. And I believe that today, because there was definitely a time in my life when I didn't feel like I was the hero. I felt like the villain. I felt like everybody was against me. I felt like everybody owed me something, because I didn't get what I thought I deserved as a child growing up. And so for a very long time in my life, I was very selfish. And so, I've had versions of the villain versus the hero, but I feel like I truly crossed that line to the hero full time when I was sued by the Federal Trade Commission. So like, it's interesting, like at the lowest points of my life happened to be some of the most gratifying and successful times of my life, because that pain has motivated me to become a better person. There's two things that motivate people. There's pain and pleasure. And it's much easier to make decisions when you're not feeling so good and you're feeling the pain. And so 2012, I was sued by the Federal Trade Commission. $10 million was the lawsuit. I went home. My fiance at the time left me. And so this was one of the lowest points of my life. And that was actually when I realized that I need to do some internal work. I need to dig in and understand my psychology, understand my emotional home, understand like why I'm making the decisions that I'm making. And so that's when my true journey began, when I started diving into personal development. And, over the last 10, 11 years has brought me to the point now where it's like, I've learned so much, I've healed so much, that now the only way for me to keep what I have is by giving it away. And so that's how I've been able to create the personal development seminars. I've created masterminds. I speak on stages. I do a lot of podcasts. I share my message. I'm building a brand so I can create awareness and show people, no matter how bad your life was or how difficult it may have seemed or how painful it was, no matter what you've been through, you can actually achieve and be whoever you want to be. And so that's my message. And that's why I'm doing this, is because I want to make a difference in the world. I want to impact the world.
So you've said a lot there. One of the things that I love is, the pain and pleasure thing. I mean, I think Tony Robbins does such a good job explaining that, and you creating enough pain to something that if you don't do something that you'll do it, and that neuro programming. But Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but if you're not, look him up and get some of his books, because you'll love them, just based on everything that we've talked about the last 15 or 20 minutes. But he says your future's, you have to know your future's always bigger than your past. And I think when I'm 85 years old, Ryan, I'll believe my future is bigger than my past, that I can always have a bigger future. And I think that it's interesting. I do this Bible devotional on the YouVersion app every day, and we've been diving into Coach Anthony Thompson, and he takes books and he kind of relates them back to the Bible. So 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He had a Bible study. So this devotional is like a Bible study. You read the author's notes, then you read some Bible verses, and then you make comments. And we've got about 15 guys on that every morning, first thing in the morning, because the first time, like it says in the Bible, Jesus went and prayed before it was light out. Like first thing you do this. And Coach Anthony Thompson is a really cool dude. He just took the book Think and Grow Rich, and now I'm going to butcher it because I think it's Think and Grow Well, not thinking, Think and Grow Rich. It's Think and Grow Well, and he takes some of the concepts, but all the concepts are, the belief. It's making a decision, taking action, all of these things. And you know what, those there's a consistent message, but all of those personal development books, their roots are in the Bible. I mean, Think and Grow Rich, right? So it says whatever is in your heart becomes your thoughts, and your thoughts become your actions, right? So the Strangest Secret, one of my favorite books of all time, super simple, super quick. But whatever you think about, that's what you're going to become. Whatever you plant in your head, negative or positive, it will grow. So I love that you're doing that and you're sharing that message, because then what people need is they need reinforcement, right? You can't I've read the Bible from cover to cover, but that doesn't mean I'm done reading the Bible. I got to read it every day to reinforce those beliefs. And just like you have to tend the garden. So maybe talk about some of the things that you've done to, whether it's the different steps in the 12-step, or the things that you're teaching people in personal development. How do you, on a daily basis, water that farm or that garden?
Yeah, sure. And so like what comes up for me is like repetition is the mother of skill, right? It's like you got to get your reps in, and you're absolutely correct about the belief system, right? It's all belief. Even if I think the outcome is going to be successful, I'm still lying. Even if I think the outcome isn't going to be successful, is not going to be successful, then I'm still lying, because I don't know what the outcome is going to be. And so rather than focusing so much on the result or the goal, focus on the activity that's needed in order to get your goal or outcome, and leave the outcome to God, right? So like I'm in partnership with God. My job is the input. My job is the activities. My job is getting the reps in, doing the work, taking action, as you mentioned, and allowing God to handle the outcome. Because if I'm aligned with who I'm supposed to be on this earth, if I find my assignment, which if you ask God, like, hey, God, what's your assignment for me? He's going to give you that answer. And when you're on that path and you're on your assignment and you're living his will, the outcome is going to be what it's needed to be. And you mentioned something about, what you focus on, you feel, right? It's like, where focus goes, energy flows. And so it's so true, right? The human mind has 65,000 to 75,000 thoughts a day. Those thoughts happen to be negative thoughts, and about 85% of those thoughts happen to be repetitive thoughts. And the reason why that is because your unconscious brain is constantly scanning the horizon, looking for what's wrong, because its sole purpose is to keep you alive. And so it's always asking, like, what's wrong with this situation? What's wrong with this situation? How is that going to harm me? It's constantly doing its job. So like once you understand and you have clarity around this, and you're like, okay, like I understand, like when I wake up, I'm going to have 65,000 thoughts. 85% of them are going to be negative and repetitive. So I know that I need to feed my mind with positivity, meditations, journaling, like you said, reading, like it's a daily practice. It's practices and rituals. It's not like you learn it once and then you graduate. It's a daily reprieve. Every single day, you have to do something that is going to strengthen your relationship with your maker, strengthen your relationship with your assignment, and then take action in order to achieve the things that you want to achieve in life.
I love that, Ryan. The thing I always think that's hard for people to accept is, you're right. Your job is to go do the input, and whatever the result is going to be, God gets the drive, right? You're not in control. Like I tell this story, but I was living in Denver, Colorado, and I said, I grew up in Los Angeles, and I said, God, I'm ready for a warmer climate. And God showed me an opportunity in South Dakota. And I said, hold on a second, maybe you didn't understand. Maybe I stuttered. Maybe we got something wrong here, right? Like, that wasn't it. But I went anyway, because it was clear that's where I was being drawn to go. And God was showing me, trust me. So then 3 years later, I got my first house in Southwest Florida and came down here in the winter. And now I live in Southwest Florida full time. And so it's not on my timetable, on God's timetable. He gave me everything that I asked him for when it was time. And I went to South Dakota, and I had faith, and I trusted, and it was the greatest thing that we ever did, is going to South Dakota. Where'd you grow up in Florida?
So I was born in Boynton Beach, Florida, a Bethesda hospital. Yep. And I grew up in Lantana, Lake Worth area, and I moved to Delray Beach, 2011.
Nice. I love Florida. Even though my house got wiped out by a hurricane last year, I still love Florida. And I got to tell you, I have a little PTSD when we get these summer rains and it's really coming down. I'm like, okay, I know I got good drainage. I got, you just start looking around, but it's hurricane season for everybody that doesn't know Florida. So we're a little bit more diligent than normal on the weather. So, But Ryan, so how do people get a hold of you? How do people engage with you? Tell me what they should do.
Yeah, sure. So go to my social media account. It's Instagram, Ryan, RYAN Zofay, ZOFAY. Follow me on my social media. We'll do all of our promotions there in regards to our personal development seminars and our masterminds and any events that we do. We always promote them there. And we'd love to have you. I mean, we teach unbelievable, insights and tools for individuals to apply in their life, like practical application, so that they can actually free themselves of the bondage and really have an experience of life that no one thought, and for me, like, I never thought was possible. And so just giving that gift away is my mission and my assignment here on this earth. And
yeah. No, so I've got I got a couple of questions I just want to ask you to help to share. So, but give me the best piece of advice anybody's ever given you.
I would say the best piece of advice that anybody has given me would be, all the answers are within inside of me. There's nothing missing. Everything that I need and want in my life is inside of me. Because for a very, very long time, I would always look for external forces to fill this internal hole. And once I realized that is short-lived and that's instant gratification, and I started looking inward, is when I really started to develop that sense of serenity. And I really started to develop that relationship with my higher power, who I call God. And so that would be probably the best advice I would say to somebody.
Awesome. If you could describe yourself in one word, what would it be?
Grace.
Love it. All right. Here's the one I prepped you for. If God came down from heaven and only allowed you to retain the knowledge that you've received from one book, not the Bible, now that I know you're a Christian dude, what would that book be?
It would be the 12-step book, Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. You're the first person that's actually given me that book as the book that would, and let me ask you a question, because I have a few friends that I've run into in the last few years, and they've been through that program. Is that and I've never asked them this, is that a book that everybody should read?
Oh man, there's hundreds of 12-step programs, and it all originated from that book. So everybody adopts the 12 steps, the actual 12 steps. The 12 steps are the same. They just replace, like, alcoholism with addiction, or they replace sex addiction with or gambling addiction, or codependency, or eating, overeating anonymous, whatever gambling, whatever it is, they use that 12-step guide. And absolutely, man, because, first step is like surrendering to the idea of like, okay, like I am not in charge. Like I surrender to a higher power. The second step is the willingness to accept a higher power in your life. The third step is receiving the higher power. The fourth step is writing a list of everybody that you're upset at, and then realizing what your part was in it, right? So it's like putting on paper who you're mad at, and then it's like, what was your part in that? And then the fifth step is like, tell all your deepest, darkest secrets, clean house, get grounded and honest with one person and a higher power. 6 and 7 are removing character defects. Step 8 and 9 is making a list of people you need to make amends to. Step 9 is actually making the amends. And then 10, 11, and 12 is pretty much the first 9 steps. So 10 is like a daily reprieve, a daily practice. At the end of the night, you reflect on your day. And if you did anything wrong, you need to make amends immediately. And you ask God to remove any character defects. Step 11 is prayer and meditation. And then step 12 is giving it back to the next sick and suffering. And so if you applied that in your life, you're going to live a life beyond your wildest dreams.
Ryan, that last step reminds me of a book, and I'm sure that, so many people they write books, they take information from everything they've learned throughout their lives. But have you read The Go-Giver?
I haven't, no.
No? Okay. All right. We're going to put in the show notes and to send you a copy. I got to remind myself to send you a copy of The Go-Giver as my gift to you. So will you do me a favor and email me your best mailing address? And I know I could probably go on social media if I knew how to do all of that stuff, Ryan, but I'm an old guy, so I don't know how to do a lot of that. But send me your mailing address. I'd love to send you a copy of The Go-Giver as my gift to you, because you definitely are a go-giver. And I really appreciate you being on the show and sharing, and appreciate all the things that you're doing out there in the world and giving back and serving others. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the gift. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So we're going to wrap this up like we do every podcast, and with the great immortal words or incredible words of Earl Nightingale. Take it away, Earl.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to hear what was shared on today's podcast. If you are looking to discover new wealth building strategies, then go to community.createtailwind.com. That's community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free courses and in-depth training videos designed to help you build wealth and break away from the herd. Click the link in the show notes to access the community today. Thanks again for listening.